the trailer, and we have a whole bunch of stuff in here going all the way back to the back of the trailer. But right up here out front, we have on top here some sound deadening panels. Now these are they're covered in burlap, and inside they have some really thick, feels like some kind of a fabric fuzz kind of thing that really helps trap the sound and deaden it. And so we have 5 of these, and I believe they're made by ATS. And we got a really good deal on these, and we'll talk more about that later. But we have this one here. We have bigger ones down here. There's one there. There's one here. There's one here. And then there's also one here. And there's even one under here. And right below this is the box for the M500 Musser Marimba. And so we're going to take all of the sound panels off here and start unboxing this marimba. And I believe that I'm going to have the only video on YouTube of a marimba unboxing, at least a Musser M500 marimba unboxing. I think there's one from a different brand out there. But I've never seen a video of an unboxing of an orchestral instrument before. So hopefully you guys enjoy this, and let's get started. So here I am with the M500. We've taken all the stuff off of the top of it, and as you can see right now, it doesn't look like an M500. It looks like a gigantic box, and who knows what could be inside of it. But if you look down here, it does say M500 right there, which is the model of the marimba, and which is pretty cool. And this is their little sticker for packing. This side up should stay up, and then also a sticker that says "Made in the USA," because of course this marimba is made right in Elkhart, Indiana. So I'm not going to show every aspect of unboxing this because we have these metal straps here that we have to get off somehow. They did a really good job of packaging this up, and but once we get all the parts out, and I'll show you what all those look like. So we've taken off the blue shrink wrap on the sides, and we've taken the metal straps off of the top, which secured it in place, and it looks like this top piece here can just lift right up off. So let's try to do that. And then we come around to the other side. Oh, it's a box within a box. Kind of. Let's get this out of here. So basically, we've got a box inside of a box. Wow, look at that. I forgot how massive the marimba was, but looking at these resonator tubes, it really shows just how massive this instrument really is. As you can see, it's all packaged very nicely, and they put a lot of thought into how it all is laid out. So let's take this part and put it in the practice room and start looking at the other parts. We have the first set of resonator bars out of the box. The set that we took out, they were curved over at the ends, which Musser calls the J-tubes. So we've got the first set of J-tubes out. There's still more down here. And this box, I'm not sure what's in it. It's extremely light. For all I know, it's some kind of an insulation or padding, but we will take this aside and look in it. So underneath of the first set of J-tubes and the cardboard spacer is the other set of J-tubes, and as you can see, they curve over and are shaped like a J, which is why they're called J-tubes. So let's take these out of the box and let's look at some of the other components. So today I'm in the practice room and I am unpacking things. You can see all the crazy stuff behind me. These are the J-tubes. This here is the side of the marimba. This is the bass side of it, and so you can see approximately how long some of these bass bars are going to be. And this here is a rather important box. It contains a lot of the important stuff. One thing being the very nice cover that is Musser branded for the M500 marimba. It's made of really nice, I don't know if it's leather or maybe it's fake leather. It's a very nice heavy material, and it's going to do a great job of protecting the marimba. Under here we have a set of mallets. It says Standard Series Mallet Musser 117, and so that you get at least 2 mallets. There's probably another pair in here somewhere. I think usually marimbas are played with 4 mallets, 2 in each hand, but I guess they can just give you a pair to start off with. And then under here, I imagine, are the bars. These look like the treble bars. And they're actually, underneath each bar, they're actually labeled with the note name, so when you're putting them on, you know that you're putting them on in the correct way. So that is really, really cool. And then I'd imagine that over here would be some more bars. Yes, more bars. There's actually a color difference between some of these bars here. Some of them are a really dark color, and then some of them are actually a much lighter color. So that's kind of interesting. And if you look at the bars, you can actually see that they've carved them out in different ways to really bring out the natural sound of each bar. Like this one here is cut flat across, but this one here is actually cut into a point, and they actually will hand carve these bars to tune them. And you can even see, at least from my angle, you can see the little carving marks underneath the bars. So this is really cool. This is so neat. And then underneath here, these are the bass bars. And then here's some more down here. Wow, look at those. Isn't that cool? That is amazing. I can't wait to get this all set up and hear what it sounds like. Alright, so here's the final box for the M500, other than some braces and stuff that are still wrapped up over in the corner. And I've already peeked this out of this one, and it's more resonator tubes. And these are not J tubes, these are the smaller ones that would go in the treble and tenor regions of the marimba. So if we take out all this packaging and throw it on the floor, you can see here that we've got somehow attached down here. Oh, maybe they're just heavy. Oh. These two seem to be attached somehow. I'm not sure how those come out. But basically, they're more resonator tubes. Oh, I think they're hinged. There's a hinge at the corner, and so then they unfold. Interesting. Whoa, okay. So these actually have a hinge down there that would then unfold and go the full length of marimba once it's completely unfolded. And it's a really cool idea there. That is neat. Alright. Let's put this one aside, and let's get the other set of resonator tubes out, and then let's start assembling the marimba. So right now I am sitting with the base end of the marimba's frame here, and what's kind of cool is there's a little metal plate here that actually has a serial number on it. It says that the model is the M500, which I know, and the serial number is right here. The serial number is CGS302, and so even though they only make about 8 a year, at least that's what I'm told, they still put a serial number with a fancy metal plate on the marimba, which is pretty cool. It also says that it's Musser. It's a division of Conselmer Incorporated, which apparently would include Ludwig and Musser. I always knew that Musser was a subdivision of Ludwig Drum Company, and then it also says that it's made in Elkhart, Indiana, and it even has a zip code there. And so I have actually visited their factory in Elkhart, Indiana, and I actually have a video of that on my channel if you want to go back and check that out, because it's pretty cool. I got to see one of these M500 marimbas fully assembled there at the factory. So to fully assemble mine, my first step I'm going to take is I'm going to take this cross brace here, and I'm going to set it in this hole, and I'm going to pull this pin back once I get it all lined up like this. So I'm going to pull this pin back, and I'm going to wiggle it into the hole, and then let the pin go back in. It has a spring, and so if I were to pull it back and let it back out, it would want to go out there. So now that piece is secured, and so now we're going to want to take the bass end of the marimba and join it to the treble end of the marimba at the other end of this tube. So let's do that. Alright, so here I am with the treble side of the frame. As you can see, it's the much narrower end. And so I'm going to do the same exact procedure over here. I'm going to insert this pole. I'm going to line it up approximately, pull back that pin, and then get it in there, just like so. And there we go. Now the two tubes are in place, and now we're going to stand up the frame on either side and line up the top end up here. So now we have the two pipes joined, and I'm going to connect them and pull this pin out and connect them just like I did at the other end. This was a two-person job. You could probably do it with one person, but it was made a lot easier having two people. So I'm going to, and even this could probably be made a bit easier with a two-person job, but it's not that hard. And so there we go. Now the cross brace is connected, and you can see now that we have the bass end of the marimba here and the treble side of the marimba here. And so what's really cool is these wheels down here actually lock. They come from the factory locked, and so when they're locked right now, they won't swivel and they will not turn, which is pretty awesome. So right now, the marimba is going to be very solid, especially once we get all of the other cross braces in. At the moment, there's a little bit of slop, but once we get all the other beams in there, it should be real solid. The next step is going to be connecting the diagonal braces, which would connect here and then would also go down to here. And there's 2 sets of those on either side of the marimba. So let's do that. Alright, so now let's put the diagonal brace on. There's a different one for the bass end and the treble end, and according to the manual, if you have those on wrong, the height adjustment will not work very well. And so you'd want to make sure that these fit. And so the way this works is there's a little notch here that you would loosen this wing nut, and you'd slide that in there. And then on the opposite direction, there's a similar slot that would fit in right here. So now I'm going to tighten up this wing nut, and then make sure that's in good, and then tighten up this one. Just like so. And that right there is going to give the marimba a lot more support. Already, it's wobbling around a lot less, so that's really good. That gave it a lot of support. Now I'm going to do the treble side as well. The diagonal braces came in a package, which the marimba is sitting on at the moment. Here we go. Let's turn this on first. Here is the way these were packaged. They were wrapped in foam, very, very well protected. And this here's the other side. So let me waddle on down to this end of the marimba and attach this. So I'm going to loosen up this wing nut to give me enough space. And then this one here is already a bit loose. So let's do that. Let's put... that doesn't look right. I must be doing something wrong. I am doing something wrong. So the less sharp angle goes on the pipe, and then the closer the angle it's closer to the right angle, it's more like a 45 degree or something there. Would go here. So that one goes on here, and that one goes here. And just like before, if I can keep it in place, let me just kind of semi-tighten that up to help hold it. And then tighten this one. Oops, wrong way. There we go. And that right there gave the marimba so much extra support. Before it was kind of wobbling. Right now it's very sturdy. The only wobble is from the wheels right now because they're aligned like that. But right now it's perfectly solid. So now let's move on to the next step. So we just finished installing this front rail here. We put the base side in first, and what happens is there's a hole underneath here that has to go onto a pin. And so then once you put the hole in the pin, then this part here can just slide in, and it's the same way over here. There's a round little peg, I guess, that slides in on the other side of a metal rod here, and then there's the pin that goes in under there. As you can see, we have assembled the second rail here. Now technically we might have done this a little bit backwards. I wanted to put the end rail on here with the Musser logo on because I knew what side that was supposed to go on. And the way the rails work is they're actually labeled. And there's a little stamp on one end of the rail where it's just kind of embossed into the wood. And so rail number 1 would go right here, and rail 1 is closest to the player, and then rail 4 is farthest away from the player or closest to the audience. And so that's how the rails are labeled, and there's a little stamp, and I'm forgetting which end it is. It's right here. So this here is rail number 3, and then this one here, I guess they put it in a different spot. It's right over here on my side. It says rail number 4. And so that's how the rails are numbered. So I'm going to put in the other 2 rails, numbers 1 and 2, and then I'll show you what that looks like before the bars go on. Alright, as you can see here, I've got all 4 sets of the rails, and it was kind of interesting in the manual. There's these braces here that connect them together, and it said in the manual that rails 2 and 3 had a little connecting rod here, but then also that bars 2 and 3 were not connected. So I think there's both a typo, and the manual was actually perhaps designed for an older version of the marimba, in which perhaps bars 2 and 3 were not connected, but bars 1 and 2 were, or something like that. I'm not exactly sure what was going on here. We have them all connected. I don't see any downside to having that, unless it turns out one of these connections is for something else later on down the road. So now next up is the task is to put the resonators in. The resonators are those big tubes, the J tubes, and the smaller ones at this end. So let's get to doing that. Alright, so now we have the resonators here laying on the ground, and we have the main set of resonators here, and we have the J-tube section over there. And so our first step in assembling the resonators is to figure out which set is the diatonic or plane scale resonators and which set is the altered set of resonators. Now the altered set of resonators is basically, if you look at the marimba as if it were a piano, the altered set would be your black and white keys. So the set of 2 bars, and then the set of 3, and then the set of 2, and then the set of 3. Whereas the diatonic set is going to be your white keys, the ones that are all next to each other. So the first layer, the altered set is the second layer. And so the way to tell just by looking at the resonators is to see if the diatonic ones only have caps at the end. The diatonic ones will only have caps. So that means if you look through the resonator tubes, you will see that you cannot see through any of them. And if you look down here, all 3 of these would have caps at the end, and then same with all of these down here. They all have a cap either at the very end of the tube or somewhere inside which sets the pitch of the tube. The altered set of tubes would have a hollow tube somewhere in there between the set of 2 bars and the set of 3, and then the tube in the middle is just hollow, and it just adds extra like sympathetic sound. And so first, once you decide which set of resonators is your diatonic and which set is your altered, and you make sure that both the J tubes and the main set are both the same set, you would then first anchor down this hinge here. As you can see, there's a hinge for transport, which helps it stay in the box and stay small. And so then you have a latch here that you can then fold and push into place, and that helps lock it. And now if I were to pick it up, you can see that it would not want to fold. So next, we would want to connect the J tubes up to the main set of resonators, and you simply do that by sliding them on through here like so. I'm going to move this out of the way and keep on sliding. Sometimes sliding these parts in and out, since they've been assembled for the first time, they can give you a bit of resistance. But now that we've got this assembled, you take these little, I guess they're like a screw or a knob or some kind of thing, I don't know what you'd really call this, and then you would just simply screw it into place in here. These came in a small box in the package, and they came with it, so that one there, this one here. And now, let's flip it around and do the other side. To put the knobs in on the other side, we've tilted the resonators up on their ends, and it's relatively stable, but you really wouldn't want to leave this alone unsupervised. So I'm just going to be holding on to it here while I do this to prevent the resonators from falling over. While I put this on, and put this one on. Alright, there we go. I think that's good. So now let's install this set of resonators. For our convenience, we took off rail number 1 while installing the diatonic set of resonators. The manual, it looks like, says that you can just simply install it. It seems that you need to put it in from underneath because the J tubes won't fit between rail number 1 and rail number 2 coming in from the top. So if you were to put it on with the rail installed, you would have to put it in from underneath. But taking off the rail is such an easy thing, it just pops out. I love the way this is constructed because there's no screws involved in your end of the building. It's just all friction fit in place with rubber and stuff. It's really great. So we just removed the rail and put this back in. So now we're going to put rail number 1 back in, take out rail number 4, and assemble and install the altered set of resonators. So this here is the altered set of resonator tubes, and this is the obvious way to tell how the resonators are. So this here is the empty one that's in between the set of 3, and then here's an empty one, and then a set of 2, and an empty one, and a set of 3, and an empty one, and a set of 2. And you can see that the 2 where the bars would go over have a cap at the end to determine the pitch, and the one that's in between and is simply sympathetic and just adds echo and stuff has no pitch, and it's just completely hollow. So that is how you can tell the set of altered resonators versus the set of diatonic resonators. Alright, so here I am on the floor, and you're probably wondering, what are you doing? I just wanted to show you the underside of the marimba bars. Now this is something that nobody ever gets to see except someone who works at the factory or someone who assembles a marimba. And so you can see here all of the different little chips and little gouges that they've made in order to tune the marimba, and they do so very, very, very accurately. You can see here in some cases they just take little tiny little slivers out of the marimba and of the bars, and you can see here how they've transitioned from having the really wide, flat, shallow area down here for the bass bars, which are really, really thin, down here to the much smaller, just thicker treble bars. And wood is actually kind of funny in the way that a thicker piece of wood will have a higher pitch than a thinner piece of wood, which is why the bass marimba bars are really, in their thinnest part here where you strike them, they're really only about like that thick, and it's very, very interesting. Now one thing I wanted to note that is actually a little bit goofy in our case is that since you're not really supposed to touch the marimba bars with your hands, so you never hit them or touch them when they're on the bars or when you're assembling the bars, you're supposed to have gloves on, or at the very least wash your hands thoroughly with soap and water. But so we wanted to go the extra mile and use gloves, but we didn't have gloves, so we actually are using socks to assemble the marimba. So we just take some clean socks, and then we just kind of make like a little sock puppet kind of thing, and then we can grab the bars and deal with them. So it's a little bit goofy, but we wanted to be safe and preserve the marimba bars because I plan on keeping this marimba for a very, very long time and using it in all kinds of songs. I've just got the diatonic set on, and it sounds so cool, and I just want to play with it all day. But now let's get the altered set of bars on and really see what it sounds like. Now I haven't finished assembling this marimba yet, and I still need to work out putting this diatonic row on, and of course I still haven't put on the altered row of bars yet, but just looking at it and playing it and listening to the sound, I can already see why I decided this was the world's greatest marimba. If we start off on the bass here, we're not finished assembling it yet, so this bottom key here has a little buzz to it, but this one here, now this note here has a lot of sustain. It swells and it rings. It's beautiful. Now we've seen people assemble instruments like this before, and they've actually put the altered bars, the black keys, in the wrong spots. And the way it works is very simple. If the tube is hollow, you do not put a bar over it. So since this bar here has a cap on it, which determines the pitch of that resonator tube, we simply slide a bar down and put it on top. But since the one next to it is hollow, and I can put my fingers right through, and they're touching, then you do not put a bar over that. Instead, you'd put one on the one right next to it. And then we make sure these strings are taut, and we continue moving on. So then these two would get bars, and this resonator tube would not get a bar because it's hollow. Moving them all down this way. Because I need more room down here. You can already hear them, vibrating, and they're all ready to go. So here we go. Let's put that on there. Wait, that one shouldn't go there. I was breaking my own rules. The resonator tube without a cap does not get a bar. So here I am with my M500 Musser marimba, and I have to say, it's an absolutely world-class instrument. I love the quality of it, and I really, really love the sound of it. And of course, it looks absolutely phenomenal as well. You've got all these beautiful bars, they've got some natural color variations to them, and they're all absolutely beautiful, and they sound so good. And I'm going to give you a quick demonstration of the marimba at the end. And while I'm not a true marimba player, I do have a basic understanding of the keyboard layout and the way it works, and therefore I have an understanding of really any keyboard instrument that's laid out like a piano keys. And so while I haven't mastered the two mallet hand technique and I'm not really amazing at playing it, I can give you a basic demonstration of it. Now I wanted to talk about the assembly technique, the assembly process, and it was actually really great. I love the fact that Musser didn't make you, I really expected that each little piece of the sides and stuff would have to be assembled, but it's not. They really made the assembly easy. It's pieces snap together, pieces screw together with large, easy to handle things, and it's just really well. I'd say the hardest part of the assembly would be the bars, and I think because since we have done it for the first time, it was rather challenging, but I think if we were to do it again, it would go much smoother on the assembly of the bars part. Now I do have one minor thing that I disliked about the assembly process, and that would be the manual. I think that I found that it was rather difficult to follow. They referred to many of the pieces with terms that they didn't describe before, so you'd have the rails and this diagonal support bars and stuff, and if you look at the marimba you can kind of figure out what everything is, but I would have liked a kind of a blown up diagram of the marimba showing all the pieces with their technical names but at the beginning of the manual. I think that alone would have made the manual much easier to follow and the assembly of the marimba go much better. But to be fair, they only make 8 of these a year, and so therefore a lot of, there aren't very many people, using it and building it, so that's why the manual would be lacking anyway. But we put it together and it's all good, and so overall I'd say this is a fantastic experience buying and assembling this Musser marimba. Now I'm going to give you a basic demonstration. I'm going to do a D major chord all the way up the keyboard and just give you an idea of what the sound of the marimba is like, and then also just do some little ad-lib musics and stuff. So let's start off here at the very end with D, and then go all the way up the keyboard. See, the thing is with the marimba, it's not white keys and black keys, they're all different colors, so it's kind of odd for me. And then of course it ends at C and it starts all the way down here at C. And all the way up the keyboard. It sounds absolutely, absolutely amazing, and I really, really love the sound of it. Marimba is so fantastic, it's just great. I love the bass end of it too. The Musser bars are really, really wide and very, very thin, which really allows that bass resonance to really come through.
just sounds so, so good. And it's an absolutely fantastic instrument. So hopefully you enjoyed this video of the Musser Marimba unboxing and assembly and a basic demonstration of the instrument. It's such a fun thing to play, and you'll be seeing it a lot in the videos in the future. So if that sounds cool and you want to hear how marimba would be used in modern music, definitely subscribe to the channel and stay tuned for really cool song updates in the future. And I have lots of reviews on pianos and other keyboard instruments as well on my channel, and I've got others coming out in the future. So if you want to subscribe, thank you very much, and if you do, thank you very much. And I'll see you in the next video. Goodbye. Thank you very much. I'll see you next video.